Next, what we're going to do is make another copy of this ocean layer. And so what I'll do is just click on this ocean or activate it and drag it to the new layer icon at the bottom of the layers palette. And then I'll click on that and drag it above the water blur layer. And we can turn it on. And what I'll do is double click on that. And let's call this Zoom Blur. And you'll see why I'm naming that in just a moment. Now, what we're going to do is apply a zoom blur. Okay? Now, the zoom blur is really going to help us create this special effect that we're looking for. It may not work on all images, but you could probably go ahead and skip this part. But for this image right here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up here to Filter, Blur, and over here to Radial Blur. And when the radial blur dialog comes up, right here where it says zoom, go ahead and put a dot in that option right there. And for quality, you can leave that at good. And then what I'll do is increase the amount. And you can see that we get a little bit of a sample over here, a little demo of what this is going to look like. But we want to try to keep in mind that whatever we set this center at is where the blur is going to be. So almost look at this preview and try to get an idea and look at the perspective of it and try to match the perspective of this preview with the photo that you have. Now, that might sound a little bit crazy, but trust me, if you do that, it's going to make a huge difference. So I might have to do this a few times, but I'm just going to drag this up, and I might just be able to get away with it in the center, just like it is right there. So I'll go ahead and just increase the blur just a little bit more and click OK, and let's see how this looks. Okay, this is awesome. Now, it looks like we just destroyed the image, but we didn't. It's okay. All right, let's move on to the next step. I'm going to come over here to the toolbar and select the rectangular marquee tool, and what I'm going to do is make a selection or select the bottom half of this image, but I want to make sure that I'm only selecting or creating a selection right on the sea level area right here and just selecting the rocks and the water, not necessarily the sky in the background, but just the bottom of it, just like this. And you can do this with masking if you want, but what I'll do is just turn this opacity back up to 100%, and then I'll come over here to Filter, down here to Distort, and select Twirl right here. And Twirl will allow us to create this sort of wavy effect that we want in this water. Look at this. You don't want to go too crazy because that's just not going to look good. So you just want to add a little bit of twirl. That's the whole point of this right here. And I'll zoom out so I can see this. Look at that. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and click OK. Great. And then I'll come up here to Select and Deselect. Now, if I look at this a little bit closer, we might have a little bit grain inside this blur. You see that? Well, let me come up here to Filter, Blur, or down here to Noise, and I'll select Reduce Noise and apply the Reduce Noise filter to this layer and maybe get rid of that, a little bit of that noise there. So that's nice and smooth. There we go. I'll click OK. Photoshop applies that. Perfect. I'll zoom out. And there you go, we're finished. Now we're not done yet, but we're moving on to the next step here, and we can do so many things now that we've created this swirl and this zoom effect.